I am trying to make an actual TV show.
It's so hard to find a funny show that isn't filthy. I watch them, but I don't want to.
Let's do this.
Fire, like lots of fire.
So dedicated.
So cool. Where's it go from there, you know?
Oh, have I got your attention now?
This is bigger than you can handle.
You got any plans for tonight?
Well, what are you waiting for? Let's go.
Cool? Absolutely!
Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing this evening? How we doing out there? I'm Randy Kleiner. I'm the co-founder and CEO of SeriesFest. Wow, I don't even need a mic. I just realized how loud I was. Is this anybody's first panel of the day? Oh, great. Couple newbies with us and obviously a lot of returning faces. So thank you so much for being with us. We are so grateful to have you, the audience here. I'm so excited for this panel. Before we get started, just a few quick thank yous. First of all, to the SeriesFest staff and volunteers. They are a small and mighty team. As you see them, please say hello, introduce yourselves, and if they look like they're falling over a little bit, just give them some coffee or something. Thank you to Denver Film. We are in their home, the Sea Film Center, and for 5 days they open up that home to become our home. From their projectionists to the theater managers, house managers, ticket people, they all come and support the festival and become part of our family. So a huge thank you to Denver Film. All right, you are here for the Methods of Multi-Hyphenates. And we have three women, that's right, who are very recognizable, of course, from their on-camera work. But to me, what is so inspiring and incredible is also what they're doing behind the scenes, their off-camera work. They are doing so many different things, from podcasts, producing, writing, directing. It's truly incredible. I think that the industry has really started to embrace, finally started to embrace multi-hyphenates. And you know what? We're not just made to do one thing. And so I think it's incredibly important. This was such an incredibly important panel for me this year to want to really showcase the incredible work that these ladies are doing. So I'm going to bring them out here. I'm going to start off. You may know her from Star Trek Picard. Anyone But You. Also Standing Naked Productions. Please welcome Michelle Hurd. And you may know her from Kim Possible, Even Stevens. She is also the co-founder of PodCo. Christy, Carlson, Romano. And the woman who helped me put this panel together. She's also a SeriesFest advisory board member, known for Orange is the New Black, actress, activist, producer, Alysia Reiner. Yeah. And here to moderate, we have Abbey White, freelance reporter for the Hollywood Reporter. Thank you, Abbey.
I really appreciate going last, being the least important person in this room.
That's not right. That's not true.
Hello, welcome. I'm so glad you are all here. I'm so glad all of you are here. I think this will be a fun, exciting panel. I want to open the floor to you. We talked before the panel to engage the audience a little and get them ready for our conversation.
Okay, who's been here all day? Raise your hand. Yeah.
Wow. Look
Okay,
at that.
so we're gonna all stand up. All stand up. So we've decided that this is gonna be the raucous panel.
Oh, okay.
This is gonna be the
It's like that.
breaking shit and shaking shit up. So I want you all to imagine
I gotta take off my
Taylor
jacket.
Swift is playing. We're shaking it up.
Let's do it.
Shaking off all of the day, all of the things you've heard that scared the shit out of you about the industry, all of the things. We're letting them all go. We're shaking it up. We're brushing it off. And we're remembering we own the power of our own creativity. We, as storytellers, own the power to break shit. If you were on that last panel, if you heard that last panel, there's a lot of thinking, there's a lot of systems that need to be broken. Yeah. We have that power. Yeah. If you were here last night, you know that we have the power as storytellers to tell the future. We are future tellers, right? We are fortune tellers. That is our job as artists. That is what we do. That is why we are powerful. That is why we are necessary. That is what we have been doing since the beginning of time. And that is what we will continue to do, regardless of the business. Okay? So I wanted to start there. Now let's go play.
You sure don't want to drop that mic? My goodness. I love you.
I love that
I'm
you
in
said
love with
that.
you.
Know, it's one of the things I speak about when people talk about our industry, our business, about the art and the sacredness of this, right? Storytelling, right? She just said it. Storytelling has been around forever. There's the, stick figures running away from a woolly mammoth in a cave, right? That's storytelling. And our art, acting, singing, dancing, painting, music, all of it, is the one language that unites us and reminds us that we're human and that we're all brothers and sisters and that we should look out for each other. So absolutely right. Storytelling is a sacred art form and it should be upheld. Thank you for saying all that.
Now back to you.
Yeah, very nice way to start the panel, I think. I want to start with a super simple question that might have a less simple answer, which is, how do you define being a multi-hyphenate professionally and personally?
How do I define it? I think you might find yourself as a multi-hyphenate. You may not realize it. The fact that you are doing so much that you can't, for myself, I can't be silent when I see injustice, when I see inequity, when I see that there's a pathway to make change. I think for me, the definition would be somebody who is actively actively trying to change things for the better, in whatever that means. That's my multi-hyphenate, yeah.
Interesting. So I find myself sort of on the receiving end of, being let's face it, a product of a system as a child actor, teen actor, particularly with Disney, that put me into the multi-hyphenate space before I truly understood my skill level or my call to what I was going to do in each of those mediums. But what I've been able to do since understanding social media as a landscape and an empowering one at that is sort of really find what it is I want from that at any given time. So like she was saying, don't worry about the industry, worry about what your story is. And so much of what I've done has been very personal and opening up in sort of more, vulnerable space. That's one of my podcasts was called Vulnerable, where I interviewed a lot of child actors. But truly, being a multi-hyphenate as a young creator, which I can kind of speak to, not that I'm young, I'm 40.
Looking
but
fabulous.
Being a young creator, seeing that, my kids are going to get social media accounts someday, and how to wrap your head around the fact that they're going to experience being thrown into kind of what I experienced with early fame. And how do they navigate being a multi-hyphenate? There are certain calls to action, and therefore there needs to be more infrastructure, more protocols that I think we can all collectively, as a creative village, lean in to talk about.
I love that so much. And I just want to say one thing about social media before I answer the question, because social media is a big moment right now. And it's funny because I'm part of an organization that is all about protections for young people in social media. And I have a 15-year-old who is off social media by choice, so that's a possibility. Again, I tell that story because I just want you to know that's possible. I like to tell possible stories. And I also, when I think about social media, for me, it kind of makes me uncomfortable. So I don't tell my stories there because it's not my love language, but it's your love language. And we all have different love languages. Like, that's sort of part of my multi-hyphenate answer. When I was a baby actor, when I was in school, I remember being told, you have to pick a lane. And boys didn't have to, but girls did. Like, that's what I remember learning when I was in school. And I went to Bada in London, and I just taught a master class there. And a 19-year-old girl came up to me and, like, after the class, and she's like, I was told by this very famous director, you either have to be a director or an actor. And if you really want to be an actor, you don't want to do anything else. And boys don't, I feel they never say that to men. So I think that's important to bring up on this panel. For many years, I was afraid to do anything else because I was told, you know, oh, then you don't really want to be an actor. I want to be an actor with every cell of my body. And I want to do other things because I contain multitudes. And as a woman, I think sometimes you're felt like you have to choose between a family and a career, and you can't have both, or a director and a writer, and you can't have both. And you can have it all, my friends. You can't have it all at the same time, but you can have it all. And so for me, like my first movie, I made as a short when my dad died, and I only made it as an activist. I made it because I was shocked by people's inability to talk about grief, people's inability to talk about mortality, people's inability to talk about cancer. And I wanted to create art to help have a tool to talk about those things. So I made this short. I partnered with the cancer support community. I worked with grief counselors and hospice workers, and we created a grief counseling guide that goes with it now, and it's used in cancer support communities and hospices all around the country. To this day, people come up to me and say, I saw that movie, it changed my life. Or I wrote in the journal, a little old man of like 80 was like, I never cried over my wife's death until I saw your movie. So stories have deep power, they're healing. And then that empowered me, making that short empowered me to make a couple other movies. I produced a couple other movies. I have some TV shows and films in development now, and I'm always curious, as a storyteller, what does it mean to be protopian? You know, we just heard on the last panel about underdog stories. Like, how do we tell these underdog stories where the underdog wins, you know, where the climate activist wins? I'm really curious about those stories as a multi-hyphenate.
So this wasn't on my question list, but it's present in the answers from all of you, which is, I think that part of your work as multi-hyphenates is speaking out. Sometimes you have to speak out in spaces where people don't want you to talk about those things. I'm curious how being a multi-hyphenate, already having the experience of juggling, perhaps having a clearer sense of who you are when you walk into those spaces, how does that help you speak out, being a multi-hyphenate?
Well,
if it does.
Cheaper. When you can do everything. You don't need to wait for anybody to greenlight you. Yeah, that's really critical, and I think it's you're gaining momentum. So for me, I didn't work for a while, and I was, you know, I went back to school. It took me like 10, 12 years to finish my degree at Columbia, and finally I was like, do I want to be a director? I was actually a receptionist at Disney, and the executives would come out and they'd be like, why are you answering my phones? Weren't you the star of one of our, like, 2 of our shows or something back in the day? And it was a very humbling experience to be a multi-hyphenate, to be interested in the industry and trying to have like this 3-dimensional relationship to it. And, you know, a lot of doors weren't opening up, and not that I felt entitled for them to, but those, like being a female, just because there was a wave of people wanting female directors, it didn't mean that they were going to give somebody just a job, you know what I mean? And so whether you're willing to work for it or not, you may not get that opportunity, is what I'm saying. So being a multi-hyphenate has given me the ability to greenlight myself.
That's great, right?
Thank you very much.
Soundbite. Being a multi-hyphenate allows me to green light myself. Like, come on.
That's a T-shirt. That is a T-shirt.
That's
Anyone
a T-shirt.
make it?
Someone make that.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that
SeriesFest
'cause
2011. I mean, Series 11.
I think for myself, we were just talking about the Crown Act, about the hair, right? And it's for me, it's funny. I was just, and I was also just talking to you about having gone to a set that I just did a recur on, and I'm part of the negotiating committee, and we just fought for terms, and I'm coming to a show that's starting on its 5th season, the first day. And I was, literally repeating it to myself about the things that have to be implemented. And we just got them. I have to see it. And I didn't see it. And I was like, you want to be the actor. I just want to be my actor. I just want to, say my lines and do my thing and have a fun time. But at the same time, I know that I fought really fucking hard so that all the people will get the safety. I mean, it's not enough for me to say, I actually need this. It's for all of us. I mean, I'm literally that crazy person that when I'm walking down the street in New York City and I see a little brown or black girl or boy with crazy hair, I literally run up the street, I cross the street, and I walk towards them and I go, oh my goodness, look at your hair. My God, you have the most glorious hair. And these children, because nobody says that to them. People, in fact, say that they have unkept hair, that they need to fix themselves and go home. And these children, they smile from their soul because someone saw them and said they were beautiful. Now that is why I can't keep quiet when I see injustice. So for me, having the multi-hyphen sort of experience is very interesting because as an actor, I love being my actor person. So that moment between action and cut is bliss. It's heaven. It's beautiful. There's no words to explain that. But as soon as there's, on the other side, before action and after cut, I'm an activist. And I can't keep shut. I can't quiet down. Yeah. And that could be to my own detriment. But at the same time, I think of my parents, who back in the day, I'm biracial. My mother's black, my mother's white, my father's black. When they got married, it was illegal in certain states. When my eldest sister was born, that was illegal. She was illegal. And I think about them, I say, back in the day, they were marching when Dr. King was executed, when Malcolm was executed, when both the Kennedys were executed. And I said to my mother, how did you do that? Because it seems like the sky was falling. And I find that too, during this time in 2024, it feels like the sky is falling. And she said, because you have to have hope for a better tomorrow. And that's all I need. I don't need to have the permission. I have hope that there's going to be a better tomorrow. It's going to take work. It's a huge boulder to push up that hill, but what the fuck are we doing? Right? Right? Let's push that boulder up the hill.
I love that so much. And, as I said, I started producing as an activist. And then when I made my first feature, which was a movie called Equity in 2015, thanks whoever saw it, it's on iTunes. It was the first ever female-driven Wall Street movie. We raised money majoritively from women on Wall Street. We sold to Sony Picture Classics and at Sundance and got great distribution and made our investors 115% back, showing that women are a good investment. But our goal was to tell this story that had never been told, to show women on Wall Street. And you see a lot of injustice in that movie. And our goal was to hire a woman writer, a woman director, more women than men behind and in front of the camera, women making more or as much money as the men, like creating parity. And
that's
when
a really
I'm
important thing. Pay equity, pay equity,
pay equity, yeah.
Pay equity. Say it again.
And when I'm a producer, it's so much easier for me. And it's my job to advocate for my crew, to advocate for my actors, to take amazing care of them, to cheerlead them, to nurture them, to love on them. And it's actually, quite frankly, much harder for me to do for myself as an actor. Even to this day, when I'm on set, when I'm an actor, it's a lot there's a joy to it that's like, oh, I just have to act. I don't have a million problems to solve today. Like, there's that for sure. But there's a little bit of like, oh, I can't ask for that, and that's, that's what we're trying to break.
It's really interesting. I was several years ago talking to somebody about an actress transitioning to producing, and I asked, I was like, is this new? Do we need more women producers? And one gentleman actually said, actually, there's more women producers than there are women directors. And one of the reasons I think that is because they can advocate for people in the way they weren't able to advocate for other people as actors, which is great. I love that. It means more everywhere for everyone on any kind of project. I want to ask you about what the environment, the space was like as you were branching out. Christy, you talked about sort of having to do that because that's what Disney wants out of everyone. But you got into podcasting, and that's an expansion too. So I'm really curious about, where were you? How much support, community support did you have? How much financial support? What was that environment like for you as you were expanding out?
Gosh, okay. So before PodCo was created, which is my podcast company that I co-founded with my husband, we produce 6 podcasts that are on the top charts. As of right now, we have the #1 in TV and film, which is the Pretty Little Liars True Crime podcast that just premiered. But before we kind of branched out in that regard as an actual company, we started off with my social media presence. I kind of missed the boat. I wasn't in the High School Musical. I predated that. So once the kids started going on Twitter and sort of feeding directly into the pipeline of social media, where they could actually start using those numbers and analytics for sponsored deals and actually being able to get sort of income outside of their contracts, which is in and of itself very empowering if wielded correctly. I sort of was late to the game, so my numbers have always been a little bit smaller, and so I've had to push out content that meant more, that costed me more, that had more information, that really was very surgical about who I was trying to talk to. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but those are risks that you have to take if you're choosing to use that medium as your storytelling voice. And so it makes me so mad to hear you amazing women not be able to advocate, because then I feel the privilege of having told everybody on the internet my personal life and had to thrust myself into advocating for myself, whether I liked it or not, whether the comments were horrible or not. And so I'm sort of this weird millennial blend of like what you guys experienced, I get, but then what the younger kids are getting, I get too. But I had no financial support. I still don't have financial support. Our company has no outside financing whatsoever. And a lot of times, what I'm making on my Walmart sponsored ads are going directly into keeping the lights lit and the people paid, with a decent livable wages and stuff like that. So it's all very grassroots for me right now.
That's absolutely wild. Everyone I know talks about your podcast. It has impact, which is wild. So we got to get you more money.
We got to get you money.
Pay equity.
It's interesting when you were talking about that there's more female producers than there are directors. That's something that women have to really take ownership over and make sure that we extend our hand and uplift each other. I had a fabulous director who I don't know if I should say her name, but she was talking to me about when she was getting into the DGA, and that she had reached out to a well-known female director who she wanted to sort of have a mentor and sponsor and help all that stuff, and she was shut off, literally cut down, because that woman felt, I'm here. If I move over and share this seat, then I may get pushed off. We got to stop that.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that in media. And
there's enough for everybody, and we really have to. And the beautiful thing, once again, bring it back to the storytelling, the sacredness of that. The more perspectives that we have in the room, the better. So I don't want to just hear a handful of women. I want to hear all the women. I want to hear all the different communities, all the different, our trans community, our LGBTQ community, our neurodiverse community. We need all those people in the room so they can create art. The sacred storytelling, perspectives that we don't know. You have an amazing, intimate perspective of what you went through. I can't do that. I need you to be there. I need to be here to talk from my perspective. So let's try to make sure that we help each other. We reach our hand out, up, down, whatever it is, and make sure there's room for all of us, because there is. I don't see any, I'm gonna just say it, I don't see any white men saying that there's not enough room for each other. Y'all all over the place. Taking care of everything, so why can't we move over and bring more women in there? Sorry, I had to say it.
And I just want to add to that, that's part of the importance of festivals like this. That's part of what we practice when we are in rooms together like this. We help each other. And it can feel sometimes like, oh, well, I want to talk to that person, and we are all here together. Boats rise together. And how can you, if you have an idea for someone else's project, if you have a contact for somebody else, share your toys. Share your toys. Same as in kindergarten. Share your toys. I promise, if they don't give you the toy back, the universe will give you the toy back.
Yeah, actually, to that, it's not so much, it's not just a marketplace, this industry. It's a community. When you have two choices, you can look at it either way, which, yeah.
I feel like, as a journalist who also does other things, I've realized those other things that I gravitate towards are a byproduct of either a strength that I have as a journalist or a hurdle that I have as a journalist. And I feel like that other pathway is a way for me to jump that hurdle. I'm curious for you, what is a skill, what is an experience that you had in your first quote unquote lane that helped you as you expanded the lanes that you're in? And the return of that, what did being in this new space do for you in the space you were originally in?
Well, it's, I was trying to think of something positive, right? But, but I couldn't, no. Because some of the things that brought me into activism work is the brutalities that have happened on sets. Predators, we have predators. There's never gonna be a time when we won't have predators. But that's a truth. Hair inequity, and it's, I know I keep bringing it up because it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Guys, I did a gig where my character was like the event planner to the stars or some shit like that. And I shot the first day with my crown, which is my hair, by the way. This is my hair, comes out of my head this way. I wear it big and puffy on fucking purpose. And it was in LA, I was driving and I got a call on the car phone, and it said, "Hi, Michelle, it's the producers." And I was like, "Oh shit, I'm fired, whatever." Pulled the car over, I was like, "Hi guys, what's up?" And they said, "Michelle, you know what? We love your hair, ... But," and you can tell that I have no problem speaking and I'm strong in my opinion. This took my breath away. It took my breath away. They said, "We did some research and we found out that if you are a lady of color and you own your own business, you would not be respected in the industry unless you have straightened hair." These words were said to me. Like your inside voice just said it out loud to the person of color.
Also, whose business?
Yeah.
Because I grew up around black women who serve black women.
Who's research?
And they don't have straight hair.
Who the fuck, where did you research? One woman who's like, and what kills me is it could have been like one black woman in the room of a whole bunch of people and who has a straightened hair or a wig, which by the way, you just know that our sisters wear wigs, 24/7. Their hair is so fragile now, because for some reason we've ingested the Kool-Aid of the concept of beauty that we were never included in the first place. I don't know why we're trying to homogenize ourselves into something that nobody ever thought that this was pretty. But that's the kind of things that I experienced in my decades of life on sets. Being, the sexual harassment stuff, the inequity of this. At that point I was like, I can't not do something about this. I think there was one strike or something with the commercial strikes back in the day. I got up to speak, and at that moment they were like, "Michelle, you need to be on the SAG-AFTRA board." And I'm like, that was it. It's like the mafia, you can't get off of it.
Can I join?
You, honey.
I'm Sicilian.
Just
so.
know it's going to happen. And this is, just speaking about women uplifting, I'm sitting there and there's the national vice president of Los Angeles SAG-AFTRA right over there. Thank you very much. Woo! She was in the car with us, and we got to talking to her, and we're talking about creating a task force for protections for minors, and this connection happened. And we're like, yay, this connection happened. That's how that happens, right? You speak to each other, see who's sitting next to you. That may be the person you need that will help you get to that next step. But those are the things, the reason I ended up branching into different areas, and like you said, not just being that, just the actor who we just love that bliss moment. I have to do something to help others, and I want to hopefully implement that in contracts so that when we're not here, it's still breathing and growing and protecting those that come after us. You have to.
I love that. My story is so randomly different, and I'm going to tell the story that popped in my head when you first said it because it made me giggle. So, as an actor, you have this false belief that you can kind of do anything because you're an actor, and you're like, you've played everything, right? You can pretend to do anything because that's part of what we do. We make pretend. So. So during COVID, I lived someplace where there are no cars, there's no doctor, there's no hospital, there's just volunteer fire. And when the pandemic was over, I said, I want to give back to this place. I want to become a volunteer fire person. And how hard could it be? I'm an actor. Like, I can do anything.
You really are a multi-hyphenate.
And
that's right.
And I show up to the first day of training, and my body is so bruised and broken. Like, my knees are I have ice packs all over my body. I'm crying hysterically for hours. Like, I can't do it. What did I think? Like, can't breathe, hysterical. And I call my best friend, who happens to be a writer in this business, Deborah Kahn, brilliant woman. If you watch The Diplomat, that's her show. And yes, for Deborah Kahn. And she says to me, do your best, try your hardest, and if you fail, it will be the best thing you could ever teach your child on the planet. That you can try your best and fail, and that's okay. And we don't do that enough. Yeah. And I was like, and I tried my best, and I tried really, and I practiced every day. There's drills you have to do, and I would do them every day at home. I brought all my equipment home, all 80 pounds of equipment, and you have to, there's something called a 2-minute drill where you have to put on all your stuff in your air and your mask and all the things with under 2 minutes, and I would practice every day. And I would say, I am a firefighter and I'm fierce as fuck, and then I would put the timer on. And I'm a firefighter now.
Yes, she is.
I'm an ambulance driver now. And so that's an interesting multi-hyphen.
I'm sure the drive for that came from being an actor where you have to come in every day, weird hours, hear no's a lot, and still keep going.
Exactly.
So I think that you've talked a lot about the wonderful things about being a multi-hyphenate, and this question isn't about the not wonderful things. I think it's about how to keep things wonderful, which is doing multiple things is time-consuming, and it's energy-consuming, and it can get worse when other people are asking for things from you as well. So I'm curious about how you manage all that work. And when I say that, I don't just mean, showing up. I had a single parent who worked sometimes 2 jobs and showed up to every softball game and every theater performance and every speech I made. And that's a lot of time and a lot of energy, right? So it's balancing all those things, personal life, professional life. How do you do that?
I will say, sort of on the onslaught of the last question, I think one of the assets of being sort of a high-performing youth in the arts is that you can multitask so well at such an early age, at such a high level. And it's not really about how much money you're making, because when you're a kid, like, you don't really understand. You really are doing it for other reasons, truly. It's like you're just playing, but then you're also doing it for your parents and the adulation and the relationships. And it's just, there's a lot there, but you are so high performing that stays with you. And I like to kind of track, and if possible, I like to mentor some of the folks that I see that are, coming up, or, I'll slide into DMs, I'll comment positively. Like, I really do try to pay that forward, whether they think I'm some kooky old lady or not. Like, I don't care, I'm there, and so I think that I'm sort of, when you said, like, how do you do it? You just do. I have 2 kids. I don't sleep. I haven't slept for 7 years. I got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. I'm always like, let's just do it. You need a thumbnail. You need a title. You need I might have somebody to do that, but maybe they're doing 5 other thumbnails right now. I'm gonna do it. So I'm much more in the entrepreneurial mindset than I've ever been before. And so that's where I'm heading right now in terms of seeing myself and dressing differently and just growing up now, finally. Like, the child actor thing for me is not, I don't want to say dead, but it's past, it's done, and I'm finally okay with that. And I'm just now stepping into understanding what it's like to be a grown-up, high-functioning multi-hyphenate.
You have a new costume.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
I'll just piggyback on that lack of sleep thing. I did a thing for Entertainment Tonight once where they're like, what's your secret? And I was like, coffee. Like, performance in a cup. Like, coffee, and more coffee. And, I leave tomorrow night on the red eye, which isn't really a red eye. It's a 4-hour flight to New York because my daughter's getting an award the next morning. Mm-hmm. And then I'm in New York for 36 hours, which could have been changed, but my mom is coming in and I want to see her before I go to Italy the next day, and it's like, so I'm missing 2 nights of sleep for the people I love is really what I want to say. It's a choice. Like, we get choices and you get to choose. And sometimes I choose lack of sleep for humanity and creativity. I will also say, in reference to choice, one of the things about producing is it's 10,000 hours for projects. Some go and some don't. That's just the truth, my friends. So when you accept that truth, for me, when I accept that truth, what is included in that truth is when I am being creative on one of those projects that may or may not go, I have to fall in love with that project, fall in love with the creativity and the joy of creating and creating new ideas and characters and stories and all of that for the art of it, for the storytelling, for the love of it, regardless of if we're going to make $1 billion or not from it. That's what keeps me sane as a producer. Like, I'm in love with the story. If I'm not in love with the story, I should not be producing it, because that's just the rule. And I have to trust that if that thing doesn't go, I will have learned something that will bring the next thing over the line. I will have grown in some way, personally, professionally, spiritually, emotionally, that will help evolve me as a human, or my next piece of art as a human, or my child as a human, or my mother as a human. That we are here to grow and evolve and tell stories, and it's not always about the bottom line, the result. Like, we all know that stupid aphorism, it's about the journey, not the destination. And that's so annoying, but it's also true.
Yeah, I think it's probably the hardest thing for me to do is to figure out, and I know I talked about you within the car about self-preservation. It's incredibly challenging. I mean, I was just in Calgary this last weekend. I came back to New York because I had to do a charity thing on Tuesday night. I went to my friend's indie screening last night. I'm here because my friend asked me to be here. I fly out tomorrow to go to Philly for a Comic-Con. You know, it's Comic-Con, hey. It's crazy, right? Because I could be so fatigued, but when I get into this kind of a situation, or when you're creating, you're producing, you get so much life from that. You know, my mother's 91 years old. She's a psychologist, and she still has a private practice because she loves what she does. We have tried, her kids, we have tried so hard for decades to like, Mom, retire, take it down, you know, and she's like, I love what I do. It gives me life. Why would I stop? So I always joke when I'm doing all the multiple things, I'll rest in June. You know, there'll be a day in June that I'll be able to rest. And this is not, all three of us, this is not the healthiest thing. There should be some better ways of being able to say no, because no is incredibly important. Self-preservation is incredibly important. But there's also so much to be done right now, you know? And I really love it. And I get life from it. So until that stops, like when you said when you're not loving what you're doing, that's when I will pull back and say no. But until that moment, I'm one of those people who it's really hard for me to say no when people ask me for help, and I'm gonna keep doing it till I can't do it.
So I think another advantage of doing multiple things is that when the bottom drops out on one of those things, it doesn't mean your life drops out. The bottom is doesn't, because you have something there. Or maybe it does, but that's the point of the question. I'm curious how having your hands in multiple things, particularly in a precarious industry, which, by the way, journalism is also precarious, and it's always been precarious since I've been in it. How does having your hand in multiple things sort of make I don't want to say make your job easier, but perhaps make you feel safer, more secure, sort of stave off some of the uncertainty that can happen? Does it?
Well, I think that's a great point, because it does, as an actor, I spend an awful lot of time unemployed. And so, I can always bemoan my SAG-AFTRA, committee work, but it gives me something to do. Producing, as you just said, takes an enormous amount of time. Like, it's like you find a script that you want to do, let's produce it. It's not going to happen in a few months. It's probably going to take a couple of years. So there is that sort of thing. You're absolutely right that these projects and commitments that we, give ourselves to do fill in the gaps. They give us some other thing to do. And when something falls and it breaks our heart, we put that energy into the next project. And like you just said, we also learn something. So every time something fails or doesn't continue, you learn from it. And you sort of take that and go, okay, well, let me make an adjustment and see what I can do with this one. So to me, I feel like it's a saving grace. It's a gift in a weird way, saying someone, when I just said I have no time to rest. But there's something about that that's, here's the deal. I'm the architect of my design. I'm the one who said yes, right? So if I don't like the bathroom there, then I shouldn't have put it there, so.
I wanted to give a shout out to the team at SAG, because there's an influencer agreement that they have, which basically has allowed me to have healthcare. Little anecdote here. I used to do some movies I didn't want to do. I did some Lifetime-y type movies or smaller budget movies that, I was always happy to work, happy to act. It was enjoyable, and I liked the people I worked for, but they were not movies that I necessarily wanted to do. They weren't stories I needed to tell. But I did it because I needed healthcare. And that's not uncommon, of course not, right? I mean, it's probably pretty standard. But what I realized was just how much SAG is such an ally. And they're constantly asking themselves, how can they be better, especially with the contracts and the negotiations and the committees. And I'm starting to really scratch the surface at, I'm triple vested. I've been a freaking union member since I was 6, 7 years old. So it's so wonderful to know that they were along there for the ride, and they're only getting, my relationship with them is only getting stronger now. And so they have that influencer agreement, and basically You got to go on the specifics of it. Please go on their website. But if you make a certain amount of money, either the sponsor themselves or you can pay into the coverage plan, and then you can get the coverage plan. And so I think I've been doing it for 2 years now. And you know, the time that I would be doing a commercial for, like I said, a Walmart or something like that, or Bumblebee Tuna most recently, it's like, well, I can get those benefits, I can get those dividends or whatever, and I can do it through my union, which kind of makes you feel, you know, like I said, like empowered. Like you can be the architect too, even if it's just not in traditional, you know, media and whatnot.
That contract was really important to maintaining solidarity too during the strikes when you're dealing with an event like a Comic-Con and people are being asked to step in the absence of actors. And it's like, well, actually, you're an influencer and they're giving you this, but they're not giving you this. And there's a better side to this. There's something that you can do. And watching that sort of happen during the strikes was super interesting and like really, I think, emblematic of the unity that we saw in the past strike that perhaps we have not seen in several decades amongst unions. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes to SAG. Yes, SAG-AFTRA. I would say it's interesting when I think about that question. It definitely feels, I wouldn't say safer, because I can't say that my hyphenation, to me, it's interesting. I'm realizing safety many times equals money for me as an artist. So it doesn't feel safer. My multi-hyphenism doesn't necessarily always bring in the bucks, but it provides emotional and psychological safety, which is very different for me. It provides more peace and more self-empowerment, where I'm, you know, I like to say, don't wait, create. I don't feel like people own me and own what's possible. It's like what you were saying in the beginning of this panel. I get to greenlight myself. And that is deeply empowering, even if it doesn't always bring in actual financial dollars. It brings in massive emotional, social, and psychological dollars.
So my final question for you sort of circles back to our conversation about social media. I think sometimes, I want to say historically, without other spaces where you can promote yourself, where you can have control of your image, convincing someone to let you do something else, proving to them that you can do it, is harder. I'm curious how social media may have helped you sort of own your identity and your brand and put out into the world without anybody else's permission who you are. And if that has sort of circled back into your work. If not, totally fine, but.
Social media seems like a crystallized, idyllic thing that seems like, you know, this, you know, amazing space for creators. It is just as constricting, platform to platform, community to community, cancel culture to cancel culture. I mean, it is literally just as riddled with a lack of infrastructure as certain aspects of, you know, our longstanding Hollywood industry. It's just different. And so I think, like we were talking about, you know, just different languages, different dialects of the same media problems. You know, engaging with each platform, each algorithm on any given day can be incredibly stressful, loaded, triggering at times. And so I'm loving the community. Community, it always comes back down to community for me. That's why I stay on social media. That's why I try to continue to grow instead of being like, you know what, maybe I should just exclusively just go back to acting, you know, move back to LA. But I'm, you know, in the middle of Austin, Texas, like running a podcast network. It's like I never could have thought that would have happened, but it just makes sense for me. And I really like the pace. I will say that. I like the pace. I guess I'm addicted to it now, but the pace of it, in that there's this A/B testing element where you're like, okay, that didn't work. Let's do this. Now I'm honing in on what works for me, for my brand, my formats, my voice, my storytelling. And it might be dwarfed. It might be like a 10-second video, but you're like, for example, my husband and I started making like couples comedy content. It's not that major, but it could be because other people have done it. And they've made, millions of dollars in sponsored. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity that comes with creating your brand and not having anyone else tell you. And it may take time. It may take testing. But like this is the recurring theme of this, is that you are the architect of your own process, whether it's through traditional media or the media that you sign up for.
Such a good point.
I know. I feel like you are, like, I bow to your queenness of social media.
Bowing to
like,
I bow to you guys.
She is.
Bowing
Like,
to
I have no answer. Like, that's the answer.
Wow.
And I guess I'll only share a different perspective that's because I choose not to understand the algorithm. It doesn't feel good for me. Like, it is, and it doesn't feel good for me, honestly, to spend a lot of time creating for free. That feels like shit to me. If that's just this little artist. Every artist has to choose the places, but I spend 10,000 hours producing something that may never go. So it's like, we all have our choices. And so that feels icky to me. So I'm like, okay, where's the love? Where's the warmth? Go where it's warm. Go, where's the love on social media? And for me, that's celebrating other people. So, for example, I have a movie that came out last weekend and is still in theaters for a second weekend. Woohoo! And so re-storying her stuff and inviting people to the theater. I don't have it's not my movie. It's this other woman's movie. I play her sister, but like celebrating her feels really good. Celebrating this festival on social media feels really good. Celebrating other people's wins. I have a bunch of friends who were just nominated for Tonys. Celebrating them feels really good to me. For me, it's a place for community. And that's what feels good. And I post that stuff and then I run away because I have to be careful of the wormhole of FOMO.
Yeah, I repost a ton of your stuff. You know that. I bow to you as well. Because I'm from the horse and buggy days. Back in moisturize, smoke and mirrors. I'm very much like you. I'm like like an activist on my social media. I'm like posting things. I get mad. I push agendas. I post my friends' shows. I do all that sort of stuff. And I too literally forget to read comments. Like, I have no thought about it. I don't think about it, child. It's not important to me, because that one bad comment will fuck up my day. And why? I don't even know you. Do you know? This person is in their basement with no lights on and they're saying some mean shit about me, and I'm going to read that and then I'm like, oh, my life is over. No. So, for me, I'm the same sort of thing. I will post, and, I rallying call. I have to say, I did a movie called Anyone But You, and Sydney Sweeney, and
You were so fire in that movie.
One of the things that she did, which was brilliant, she utilized social media so well. Because if you guys remember, we have that song at the end of the movie where, unwritten, or rather it's throughout the movie, and people started to post little videos of themselves afterwards, and she would repost that. And I mean, it was brilliant. That was a $25 million movie that we grossed over $216 million in the theaters. Wow. For a rom-com. And that was definitely because of Sid. Because she got it. She just did Immaculate, which she's also a producer of, and she did the same thing with Immaculate. She encouraged people to post what is it like after you see that movie. So it's a brilliant use of
marketing dollars. Yeah,
you absolutely can do that. Just make sure that you protect yourself, and if you're like the grand older people on this panel, don't read those comments because it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. You know who you are. Be your biggest fan. I don't need anybody to pop me up. I know who I am. I know what I can do. I don't need someone else to tell me that I can't do that. They're strangers. It's like you know, I don't even know how you live in your house. Is it messy? Where do you eat your food? And, you know, and yet you said I was ugly? Ugh, you know, whatever. So that's one of those things.
It's funny. I will say it's similar. You know, it's back to community and activism. I just remembered, like, a year ago, I work with a lot of formerly incarcerated people, and I work with an organization called Second You, which teaches people coming out of prison how to be personal trainers. And now we're teaching them all sorts of building skills. And so about a year ago, I had this idea in meditation. If you were here last night, you heard me talking about meditation. Seriously, in meditation, I was like, we have to do this. And we did a little, it's been my only Instagram series. You can follow me now and see it from like a year ago, where I worked out with him in these little videos. And it was all him. Like, it was I was working out, but the dream of my thing was his pep talks, and that people could hear him, and that I could use my platform to uplift him. Because that's like, oh, that was my only little web series, little Instagram series, because that's what felt good to me, was activism and community always feels good to me. That's my warm place.
All right. That is it, but I want to thank these three lovely women for talking with us today. And thank all of you for being here. I hope you enjoy the rest of SeriesFest.
Thank you, guys.